The stars above Earth had always been quiet. For thousands of years, humans looked up at the night sky and wondered if they were alone. On a cold Tuesday morning in November, they got their answer. The Dominion fleet appeared without warning. One moment, the sky was empty. The next moment, 300 massive ships blocked out the sun over every major city on the planet. Each ship was the size of a small mountain, made of black metal that seemed to eat the light around it. Admiral Vex stood on the command bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Silence. He was tall and thin, with gray skin and eyes that had seen 1,000 worlds burn. Behind him, his officers worked at their stations, running scans of the planet below. "Report," Vex said, his voice calm and cold. "The planet is called Earth," his tactical officer replied. "Population of 8 billion. They have primitive technology. Nuclear weapons, basic space travel, simple computers. Nothing that can threaten us." Vex nodded slowly. He had heard this same report many times before. Every world the Dominion conquered was the same. They all thought they were special. They all thought they could fight. They were all wrong. "What about their military?" Vex asked. "Fragmented. They have no unified command. The planet is divided into separate nations that often fight each other. They will not be able to organize a defense." Vex allowed himself a small smile. This would be easy. The Dominion had conquered over 1,000 worlds in its long history. Not once had they failed. Not once had they retreated. The pattern was always the same. Arrive, demand surrender, crush any resistance, and move on to the next world. "Send the standard message," Vex ordered. "They have 48 hours to surrender. If they refuse, we begin the cleansing." The message went out to every screen, every radio, every device on Earth. It was translated into every human language. The message was simple: surrender or die. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains in Colorado, Colonel David Park watched the message play on a large screen. Around him stood the most powerful military leaders on Earth. Generals from America, Russia, China, Europe, and dozens of other nations had gathered in this bunker within hours of the alien arrival. Park was 52 years old, with a soldier's build and tired eyes that had seen too many wars. But he had never seen anything like this. The aliens were real. They were here. And they wanted Earth. "What do we know about them?" asked General Williams, a large man with a thick beard. "Almost nothing," Park replied. "Their ships appeared from nowhere. Our satellites detected some kind of energy field around each vessel. We fired 3 nuclear missiles at the ship over Moscow. They did nothing. The missiles exploded against their shields like firecrackers. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what this meant. Their most powerful weapons were useless. "So we surrender," said a politician from the back of the room. "What choice do we have?" Park turned to look at him. "Do you know what happens to worlds that surrender to forces like this? I don't know these aliens, but I know conquerors. They don't want peace. They want slaves. They want resources. They want everything we have, and they will take it whether we fight or not. Then what do you suggest?" General Williams asked. "You just said our weapons don't work." Park was quiet for a long moment. He thought about his daughter, Sarah, who was only 16. He thought about his wife, who was probably watching the news right now, terrified. He thought about every person on Earth who was looking at the sky and wondering if this was the end. "Our nuclear weapons don't work," Park finally said. "But that doesn't mean we can't fight. These aliens have never faced humans before. They don't know what we're capable of." "And what are we capable of?" someone asked. Park looked around the room at the faces of men and women from nations that had been enemies for centuries. Russians and Americans, Chinese and Japanese, Indians and Pakistanis. All of them were here, together, facing the same threat. We're capable of anything, Park said. When humans are pushed to the edge, we don't give up. We push back. We adapt. We survive. That's what we've always done. He walked to a large map of the world that covered one wall of the bunker. They expect us to fight the way we've always fought. Armies against armies. Tanks against tanks. But we can't win that way. So we won't fight that way. We'll fight like shadows. We'll hit them where they don't expect. We'll make them bleed for every inch of our planet. General Williams stepped forward. You're talking about guerrilla warfare on a global scale. Yes, Park said. Every city becomes a trap. Every forest becomes an ambush. Every human becomes a soldier. We may not be able to destroy their ships, but we can destroy their soldiers. We can make this invasion so costly that they'll wish they never heard of Earth. The room was silent for a long moment. Then, one by one, the military leaders began to nod. They had spent their careers preparing to fight each other. Now, they would fight together. How do we start? General Williams asked. Park turned back to the map. We start by evacuating the cities. Move everyone who can't fight to safe locations. Then we prepare our welcome for these aliens. When they come down from their ships, they're going to find out that Earth is not an easy target. Above the planet, Admiral Vex watched the humans scramble. His sensors showed massive movements of people, vehicles, and military equipment. He was not concerned. Every species panicked when the Dominion arrived. It meant nothing. Sir, his tactical officer said, they have not responded to our surrender demand. They will, Vex replied. They always do. And if they don't, we will teach them the price of defiance. He turned away from the view screen, confident in his victory. The Dominion had never lost. This small blue world would be no different. He was wrong. In cities around the world, humans were not panicking. They were preparing. Soldiers checked their weapons. Engineers studied the crashed remains of an alien probe. Scientists worked through the night, trying to find weaknesses in the alien technology. And in basements and bunkers, in homes and hospitals, ordinary people made a choice. They chose to fight. They chose to resist. They chose to show these invaders what humanity was made of. The aliens had 48 hours to wait. They thought it was a countdown to surrender. It was actually a countdown to war. The 48 hours passed. Earth did not surrender. Admiral Vex was not surprised. Some worlds chose defiance. It never lasted long. He had already selected his first target, a large city called Seoul in a region called Korea. The city was chosen for a simple reason. It was visible. It was important. When it fell, the rest of the planet would understand that resistance was pointless. Vex sent his finest soldiers. The Crimson Legion was legendary across 100 star systems. 3,000 warriors, each one trained from birth to kill. Their armor could stop any projectile. Their weapons could melt steel. They had never lost a battle. The dropships descended through Earth's atmosphere like falling stars. Inside, Commander Rax checked his weapon one final time. He had served in the Crimson Legion for 40 years. He had conquered 12 worlds. This would be his 13th. Remember, Rax told his soldiers, these humans are primitive. Do not underestimate them, but do not fear them. We will secure the city center, establish control, and wait for the population to surrender. Anyone who resists dies. The ships landed in the heart of Seoul. The doors opened, and the Crimson Legion marched out in perfect formation. They found empty streets. Rax frowned. His scanners showed life signs everywhere, but he could see no one. The buildings were dark. The streets were silent. It was as if the entire city had vanished. Spread out, he ordered. Find them. 3 blocks away, Lieutenant Jinx Kim watched the aliens through a pair of old binoculars. He was 28 years old, a former Special Forces soldier who had volunteered for this mission, knowing he might not survive. Beside him, Sergeant Michelle Lee counted the enemy soldiers. 3,000, she whispered, just like intelligence said. Their formation is tight, Kim observed. They're not used to urban combat. They fight on open fields, not city streets. Lee nodded. She had spent the last 2 days helping to prepare this trap. Every building around the central square was rigged with explosives. Every sewer tunnel held soldiers waiting to strike. Every rooftop had snipers ready to fire. Signal the others, Kim said. It's time. Lee raised her hand and made a simple gesture. In the darkness of 100 windows, soldiers saw the signal and passed it on. Within seconds, everyone was ready. Kim took a deep breath. His heart was pounding, but his hands were steady. He had trained for moments like this. Not exactly like this, of course. No one had trained to fight aliens. But the principles were the same. Wait for the enemy to enter the kill zone. Strike hard and fast. Vanish before they can respond. Now, Kim said. The first explosion came from beneath the street. A massive blast tore through the center of the alien formation, throwing bodies into the air. Before the Crimson Legion could react, the buildings on both sides of the street collapsed inward, burying dozens more. Commander Rax screamed orders into his communicator, but it was useless. The humans had jammed all their frequencies. His soldiers could not hear him. They could not coordinate. They could only fight and die. Humans emerged from everywhere. They came from sewers and subway tunnels. They jumped from windows and rooftops. They attacked with bullets and grenades, with knives and hammers, with anything they could find. The aliens' armor was strong, but it was not invincible. The humans had studied the crashed probe. They knew where the weak points were. They aimed for joints and visors. They attacked in groups, overwhelming individual soldiers. Rax watched in horror as his legendary warriors fell one by one. These humans were supposed to be primitive. They were supposed to be afraid. Instead, they fought like demons. They showed no fear. When one fell, another took their place. They kept coming and coming, an endless wave of fury and determination. A young human woman ran at Rax with a knife. He shot her, but before she fell, she threw the knife. It struck his arm, finding the gap in his armor. Pain exploded through his body. He had not felt pain in 20 years. "Retreat!" he finally screamed. "All units, retreat to the dropships." But there were no dropships. The humans had destroyed them while the battle raged. The Crimson Legion was trapped in a city that had become a grave. The battle lasted 8 hours. By the end, the streets of Seoul were covered in alien bodies. Of the 3,000 elite soldiers who had landed, not one survived. The humans had lost many of their own, but they had won. They had proven that the invaders could die. Back on the Eternal Silence, Admiral Vex received the news in silence. His tactical officer was pale and trembling. "They're all dead, Admiral. Every single one. The Crimson Legion is gone." Vex could not speak. This was impossible. The Crimson Legion had conquered worlds. They had crushed armies. They had never been defeated. "Show me the recordings," he finally said. He watched the battle unfold on the screen. He saw his soldiers die. He saw the humans fight with a savagery he had never encountered. They used their own city as a weapon. They sacrificed themselves to take down their enemies. They showed no mercy and asked for none. "What are these creatures?" Vex whispered. "They call themselves humans," his officer replied. "Perhaps we underestimated them." Vex clenched his fists. Anger replaced his shock. He had never lost before, and he would not accept this defeat. If 3,000 soldiers were not enough, he would send more. He would send all of them. "Prepare the Iron Tide," he ordered. "Every soldier we have. We will burn this planet to ash." On Earth, news of the victory spread like wildfire. For the first time since the invasion began, people had hope. The aliens could be killed. They could be beaten down in Seoul. Lieutenant Kim stood in the ruins of the city center, surrounded by the bodies of fallen enemies. Michelle Lee stood beside him, her face covered in blood and dust. "We did it," she said quietly. "We actually did it." Kim nodded, but he felt no joy. He knew this was only the beginning. The aliens would return with more soldiers, more weapons, more rage. The real war was just starting. "Get everyone underground," he said. "Collect the alien weapons. Tend to the wounded. They'll be back, and we need to be ready." Lee looked at the sky, where the massive alien ships still hung like dark clouds. "Do you think we can win?" she asked. Kim thought about the question for a long time. He thought about the soldiers who had died today, fighting against impossible odds. He thought about the billions of people around the world who were watching, waiting, hoping. "I don't know," he admitted. "But I know we won't stop fighting. Not ever. These aliens came here thinking we were easy prey. They were wrong. And we're going to make sure they never forget it." Above them, the alien fleet began to move. More ships were arriving from somewhere beyond the moon. The enemy was gathering its forces. The first battle was over. The war had just begun. Admiral Vex stood before the council of ship commanders, his face like stone. The holographic images of his officers floated around him, each one waiting for orders. "The Crimson Legion is gone," Vex said. 3,000 of our best warriors, killed by primitives with metal weapons and chemical explosives. This is unacceptable. "Perhaps we should reconsider our approach," one commander suggested. "These humans are more dangerous than we expected." Vex slammed his fist on the table. "We do not reconsider. We do not retreat. We are the Dominion. We have conquered 1,000 worlds. This tiny planet will not break our record." He pulled up a map of Earth on the main screen. Red dots marked the major population centers. Blue lines showed military installations. "We will deploy the Iron Tide," Vex announced. "All of them. 50,000 soldiers, supported by armored vehicles and air support. We will land on every continent at the same time. We will give them no time to prepare, no chance to organize. We will crush them." The Iron Tide was the Dominion's ultimate answer to planetary resistance. They were not as elite as the Crimson Legion, but they were many. They carried heavier weapons. They had vehicles that could level entire cities. When the Iron Tide landed on a planet, the war ended quickly. 3 days after the fall of the Crimson Legion, the Iron Tide descended. They landed in America, Europe, Asia, Africa, Australia, and South America. 50,000 soldiers hit the ground running, their weapons firing, their vehicles rolling forward. They expected to find terrified civilians and scattered defenders. They found something else. In the American Midwest, Captain Brian Cho led a unit of 300 fighters. They were not all soldiers. Some were farmers who knew the land better than anyone. Some were hunters who could track any target. Some were teenagers who had learned to shoot before they learned to drive. They called themselves the Ghosts of the Prairie. When the Iron Tide rolled through Kansas, they found empty towns and abandoned farms. Their scanners detected no life signs. Their scouts reported no resistance. For 3 days, they advanced without opposition. On the 4th day, the attacks began. The ghosts struck at night. They came out of cornfields and forests, out of barns and cellars. They hit supply convoys and communication posts. They placed bombs on roads and snipers in trees. They killed and vanished, over and over again. Captain Cho had studied every guerrilla war in human history. He knew the tactics of Vietnam and Afghanistan, of the French resistance, and the Spanish guerrillas who had fought Napoleon. He adapted these tactics for a new enemy. They rely on their technology, he told his fighters. Their scanners, their communications, their vehicles. Take those away, and they're just soldiers like us. Soldiers who don't know our land, don't know our weather, and don't know how to fight in the dark. The Irontide commanders were confused. They were trained for open battle, not this shadow war. They could not find an enemy to fight. They could not hold the ground they took. Every night brought new attacks. Every morning brought new bodies. Across the Atlantic, Commander Angela Song coordinated the resistance in Europe. She was 40 years old, a former intelligence officer who had spent her career analyzing threats. Now she was the threat. She worked from a bunker beneath the Swiss Alps, connected to resistance cells in every country. French fighters attacked alien bases in Paris. German engineers built weapons from captured alien technology. British soldiers held the coast against landing parties. Italian partisans controlled the mountains. Song slept 2 hours a night. She ate when she remembered. Her soldiers called her the Ghost because she seemed to be everywhere at once. When an alien patrol vanished in Poland, Song knew about it within the hour. When a resistance cell in Spain needed weapons, Song found a way to deliver them. "We cannot match their firepower," she told her commanders in a secured transmission. "But we can match their numbers. There are 8 billion of us. Every man, woman, and child who can hold a weapon is a soldier. Every building is a fortress. Every street is a battlefield." In Australia, Sergeant Thomas Yoon made a discovery that changed everything. His unit had captured an alien soldier alive, the first one ever taken prisoner. They studied his armor, his weapons, his biology. They learned that the aliens came from a cold world. They had evolved in darkness and ice. They could not handle heat. "Their suits have cooling systems," Yoon reported to the Global Command. "But those systems can be overloaded. Sustained temperatures above 40 degrees Celsius cause the suits to fail. Above 50 degrees, the aliens themselves start to shut down." This information spread across the planet within hours. In the Australian outback, where temperatures regularly reached those levels, Yoon's unit began luring alien patrols into the desert. They used mirrors to focus sunlight onto enemy positions. They started fires that turned battlefields into ovens. The aliens began to fall not to bullets, but to the heat of an angry planet. 6 months after the Irontide landed, their numbers had been cut in half. 25,000 soldiers were dead, and they controlled nothing. Every city they captured became a death trap. Every base they built became a target. Admiral Vex stared at the casualty reports, unable to understand what he was seeing. The Dominion had never lost so many soldiers. They had never faced an enemy that simply refused to stop fighting. "We control their skies," he muttered. "We have weapons that can destroy their cities. Why do they keep fighting?" His intelligence officer brought him a report from the surface. It was a recording of a captured human being interrogated. The human was beaten and bloody, but he was laughing. "You don't understand," he said to his captors. "You can't understand. We're not fighting because we think we can win. We're fighting because we're humans. It's what we do. You can kill every single one of us, and the last human alive will still spit in your face." The recording ended. Vex sat in silence for a long time. "They're insane," he finally said. "Perhaps," his officer replied. "Or perhaps they're something we've never encountered before. A species that values defiance more than survival." Vex shook his head. "There must be a way to break them. Every species has a breaking point. If they do, Admiral, we haven't found it yet. And we're running out of soldiers to look." On Earth, the resistance grew stronger every day. Factories hidden underground produced weapons and ammunition. Scientists studied captured alien technology and found ways to use it. Farmers learned to grow food in secret. Doctors learned to treat injuries with limited supplies. Humanity was adapting, evolving, becoming something new. They were no longer just humans. They were survivors. They were fighters. They were the ones who would not kneel. And in bunkers and basements around the world, they whispered a simple promise to each other. We will not stop. We will never stop. We will fight until we win or until there's no one left to fight. The aliens had expected a quick victory. Instead, they had found a war without end. 1 year had passed since the invasion began. Admiral Vex stood alone in his private quarters, staring at a holographic map of Earth. Red zones marked areas under Dominion control. There were very few red zones. Most of the planet was blue, the color of human resistance. He had started with 53,000 soldiers. He now had less than 15,000. Every day brought new losses. Every week brought new defeats. The humans did not fight like any species he had ever encountered. A coded message arrived from the Dominion Council back on his homeworld. He read it with trembling hands. The Council was displeased. The Council demanded results. The Council warned that failure would not be tolerated. Vex threw the message across the room. He had served the Dominion for 80 years. He had conquered 37 worlds. Now he was being threatened by bureaucrats who had never seen a battlefield. Admiral, his intelligence officer, said from the doorway, "You need to see this." Vex followed him to the interrogation chamber. On a screen, he watched the recording of their latest prisoner. She was a young woman, barely more than a child by human standards. She had killed 4 Dominion soldiers before they captured her. "Why do you fight?" the interrogator asked her. "You cannot win. Your weapons are primitive. Your numbers grow smaller every day. Why not surrender?" The woman looked at the camera with eyes that held no fear. "Because surrender means death," she said. "Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually. You didn't come here to share our world. You came here to take it. We've seen your kind before. Not aliens, but conquerors. Men who thought they could rule the world. They all failed. They all fell, and so will you. We have conquered 1,000 worlds," the interrogator said. "We have never failed." The woman smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who knew something her enemies did not. "Then I guess we'll be your first," she said. Vex turned off the recording. He had seen that smile before on the faces of 100 humans. It was the smile of someone who had already accepted death and was no longer afraid. "What do we know about their resistance leadership?" he asked. "Very little, Admiral. They use a decentralized command structure. There is no single leader to capture or kill. If we destroy one cell, another takes its place. If we kill one commander, another steps up." Vex nodded slowly. He had learned something in this past year. He had learned that humans were not primitive. Their technology was less advanced, yes, but their understanding of war, their ability to adapt and endure, their sheer stubborn will to survive was beyond anything in Dominion experience. "We need to end this," he said. "Not because the Council demands it, but because we cannot sustain these losses." "What options do we have?" The officer hesitated. "We could use the orbital weapons, Admiral. Destroy their cities from space. Kill billions of them in hours." "And then what? Rule a dead planet?" "We came here for resources, for labor, for a new colony world. If we burn it to ash, we gain nothing. Then I don't know, Admiral. Short of genocide, I don't see how we break them." Deep beneath the Swiss Alps, General David Park convened the first meeting of the United Human Council. Representatives from every nation on Earth had gathered in this secret bunker. Former enemies sat side by side, united by a common threat. "1 year ago, we were divided," Park said. "We fought each other over land, over resources, over ideas. The aliens thought this made us weak. They were wrong. Our diversity is our strength. We have 1,000 ways of fighting, 1,000 ways of surviving, 1,000 cultures of resistance. They have one way, and it's not working. He pulled up a holographic display showing the alien fleet in orbit. Their numbers are down to 15,000 ground troops. Their fleet has lost 12 ships to our missile attacks. They are running low on supplies because we've been targeting their landing zones. For the first time since the invasion began, we have the advantage. Lieutenant Colonel Michelle Lee stepped forward. She had risen quickly through the ranks after the Battle of Seoul. Now she commanded all resistance forces in East Asia. We've also made progress in understanding their technology, she said. Dr. Grace Kang and her team have been working around the clock. They have something to show us. Dr. Kang was a small woman with tired eyes and steady hands. She had been a physics professor before the invasion. Now she was the most important scientist on Earth. The aliens use energy shields, she explained. These shields stop our missiles and bullets. We couldn't break through them no matter what we tried. She paused, and a small smile crossed her face. Until now. She placed the device on the table. It was small, about the size of a flashlight, made from a combination of human and alien technology. We call it the equalizer. It produces a frequency that disrupts their shield generators. When we tested it on captured alien equipment, the shields collapsed within seconds. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what this meant. For the first time, humans would be able to fight the aliens on equal terms. How many can you make? Park asked. We've already produced 5,000. With the manufacturing capacity we've built over the past year, we can produce 50,000 within 2 months. Park looked around the room at the faces of leaders from every nation. Russian generals sat next to American admirals. Chinese commanders shared tables with Japanese strategists. African warlords who had once fought each other now planned operations together. For 1 year, we have fought defensively, Park said. We have survived. We have resisted. We have made them pay for every inch of our planet. But survival is not enough. We didn't come this far just to hold on. We came this far to win. He stood up, his voice growing stronger. In 2 months, we will have the weapons we need. In 2 months, we will launch a global offensive. Every continent, every country, every resistance cell will attack at the same time. We will drive them back to their ships. We will destroy their bases. We will show them that Earth is not a world to be conquered. Captain Brian Cho spoke up from the American delegation. What if they retreat to their ships and bomb us from orbit? Then we'll find a way to reach them there, Park replied. We have scientists working on missiles that can penetrate their shields. We have engineers designing spacecraft from captured technology. If they run to space, we'll follow them. Commander Angela Song nodded from the European section. The resistance networks are ready. We've been waiting for this moment. Give us the weapons, and we'll finish this fight. Park looked at the faces around him. Men and women who had sacrificed everything. Soldiers who had watched friends die. Leaders who had held their people together through the darkest year in human history. 1 year ago, they came to our world and demanded surrender. They thought we would kneel. They thought we would break. They were wrong. He raised his fist, and the room rose with him. 2 months from now, we take back our planet. 2 months from now, we teach them why they should never have come to Earth. 2 months from now, we show the galaxy what humans are made of. The bunker erupted in cheers. For the first time since the invasion began, they were not just fighting to survive. They were fighting to win. The offensive began at midnight on the first day of spring. Across the entire planet, resistance forces struck at the same moment. In New York, fighters emerged from the subway tunnels and overwhelmed the alien garrison. In Tokyo, hidden artillery batteries opened fire on enemy positions. In London, Paris, Berlin, Moscow, and 1,000 other cities, Humans attacked with a fury that shook the world. This time, they had the equalizers. Admiral Vex received the first reports with growing horror. His troops were dying everywhere. Their shields were failing. Weapons that had always been useless against Dominion armor were now tearing through it like paper. How is this possible? He demanded. What happened to our shields? Unknown, Admiral. Some kind of jamming technology. Our scientists have never seen anything like it. Vex watched his tactical display as red dots disappeared one by one. Each dot was 100 soldiers. Each disappeared dot was 100 dead. Order all forces to fall back to the primary bases, he commanded. We'll regroup and counterattack. But there was no regrouping. The humans had spent a year preparing for this moment. They knew where every alien base was located. They knew every patrol route, every supply line, every weakness. They had turned the invaders' own intelligence against them. Lieutenant Colonel Michelle Lee led the assault on the main alien base in Seoul, the same city where she had won the first battle of the war. She carried an equalizer in one hand and a rifle in the other. Beside her, Lieutenant James Kim fought with the same calm determination he had shown from the beginning. Shields are down, someone shouted. Their shields are down. Lee pressed forward. The alien soldiers were confused, terrified. They had never fought without their shields. They died quickly. Within 6 hours, the base was captured. 20,000 aliens who had occupied the city for months were killed or driven away. The Korean flag rose over the ruins. Similar scenes played out across the world. In Argentina, resistance fighters reclaimed Buenos Aires. In Egypt, soldiers liberated Cairo. In India, China, Brazil, everywhere humans lived. They rose up and fought back. Admiral Vex stood on the bridge of the eternal silence and watched his empire crumble. He had started with 53,000 soldiers. Now he had less than 3,000, scattered across a hostile world with no hope of rescue. Admiral, his tactical officer said quietly, "The Council is demanding an update." Vex laughed. It was a broken, empty sound. Tell them we've lost. Tell them we're retreating. Tell them that Earth is beyond our reach. Sir, the Dominion has never retreated. Then we'll be the first. Vex turned to face his remaining officers. Prepare all surviving ground forces for evacuation. We're leaving. The evacuation was a disaster. Human missiles, now equipped with shield-breaking technology, shot down dozens of dropships. Anti-aircraft guns hidden in mountains and forests took down dozens more. Of the 3,000 soldiers who tried to escape, less than 500 made it back to the fleet dot as the eternal silence prepared to leave Earth orbit. A transmission cut through all frequencies. It was a human face, weathered and tired but undefeated. General David Park addressed the alien fleet directly. "You came to our world expecting easy prey," Park said. "You found something else. We are humanity. We do not kneel. We do not break. We do not forget." He leaned forward, his eyes hard as steel. "Go home. Tell your masters what happened here. Tell them that Earth is not a world to be conquered. And tell them this. If you ever return, we will not just defend. We will follow you. We will find your homeworld. And we will make you understand the price of threatening our planet." The transmission ended. Admiral Vex ordered the fleet to jump to hyperspace. As Earth grew smaller in the view screen, he felt something he had never experienced in 80 years of conquest. He felt fear. The journey home took 3 months. When Vex arrived at the Dominion Council chambers, the ruling elders were waiting for him. He stood before them like a criminal facing judgment. "Report," the High Elder commanded. Vex took a deep breath. "We landed on Earth with 53,000 of our finest warriors. We deployed the Crimson Legion and the Iron Tide. We used our best tactics and our most advanced weapons. He paused, struggling to say the words. We lost. The humans killed over 50,000 of our soldiers. We destroyed their cities, but they rebuilt them. We killed their leaders, but new leaders rose. We thought we understood war. We were wrong. The chamber fell silent. No Dominion fleet had ever returned in defeat. No Dominion commander had ever spoken such words. What are these humans? The High Elder asked. Vex thought about the question for a long time. He thought about the prisoners who laughed while dying, the soldiers who sacrificed themselves without hesitation, the civilians who picked up weapons and fought alongside their armies. They are something we have never encountered, he finally said. A species that does not surrender. A species that adapts to any threat. A species that values defiance more than life itself. They call it courage. They call it stubbornness. They call it being human. The High Elder nodded slowly. And your recommendation? Never return to Earth. Mark it on all our maps as forbidden territory. Let the other races of the galaxy know what happens to those who threaten humanity. The council debated for many hours. In the end, they agreed. Earth was declared off-limits. The Dominion would never speak of their defeat. They would pretend it never happened, but rumors spread. Travelers whispered about a small blue planet that had broken the Dominion's perfect record. Merchants told stories of a species that fought like demons. Scientists wondered what made these humans so different. On Earth, the celebrations lasted for weeks. Humans danced in the streets of rebuilt cities. They sang songs about the soldiers who had died and the leaders who had guided them. They told stories that would become legends. General Park stood on the observation deck of a newly built space station, looking down at the planet he had helped save. Michelle Lee and James Kim stood beside him, along with Brian Cho, Angela Song, Thomas Yoon, and Grace Kang. The heroes of the Resistance, together one last time. What now? Lee asked. Park smiled. Now we build. We take what we learn from their technology and we make it ours. We build ships that can cross the stars. We build weapons that can fight any enemy. We make sure that no one ever threatens Earth again. And then? Kim asked. Park turned to face his friends, his comrades, his family. In his eyes, there was something new. Not just the determination that had carried them through the darkest days. Something brighter. Something more dangerous. And then we go out there. We find the Dominion. We find every species that ever conquered a weaker world. And we teach them a lesson they'll never forget. He pointed at the stars. They sent their finest warriors to Earth. None came home to tell the tale. Now it's our turn to visit them. Far across the galaxy, the Dominion Council received reports of strange sightings near the edge of their space. Ships of unknown design. Signals in an unfamiliar language. Humans. They had made a promise. They had kept it. And now they were coming. The galaxy would never be the same.